I'm Ellis Martin. Join me for a conversation with Robert Rohlfing, the CEO of Desert Mountain Energy, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange as DME and in the United States on the OTC as DMEHF. Desert Mountain Energy is a resource company actively engaged in the exploration and development of helium and rare earth gas properties in the American Southwest, with a substantial landholding at the Holbrook Helium Project in Holbrook, Arizona, the world's best address for helium with prolific historic production. The company intends on becoming completely vertically integrated, producing helium from their wells in Arizona for delivery to offtake candidates within the region. The consumption of helium, along with recent prices, has proliferated as its uses in the medical world, in computers, and other arenas has grown. Robert, welcome back to the program. Nice to have you on the air today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and visit again.
Now, you have potentially the biggest helium play in the American Southwest, very high grade. Let's give our audience an overview of the company since it's been a while since we've spoken.
Basically, our first two wells were very high grade, in excess of 5%. Most of the other folks that are looking for helium are normally in the 0.5% to 1%, 1.5% range. So we're into a very high grade area. Additionally, we are more of a pure helium play. We are not looking for where you have helium mixed in with hydrocarbons. We're not trying to strip it off. It's not trying to make it as part of some other deal. This is our main focus here. And our focus within that has been to where we have just nitrogen, which is 75% of what we breathe, is the main byproduct. So we're not adding to any discharges into the environment. And that's our by design and goal.
We've spoken about this before, perhaps venting off gases that are not welcome in the environment like CO2. And you've got very good results from this fourth Wildcat drill that we mentioned last time we spoke. And you've waited to really chat about anything until the work was done there. Let's talk about that process and how exciting this is.
What we have tried to do is stay away from CO2 or any of the other associated gases, so that what we have truly focused on is just nitrogen, not fracking, not using acid, just straight vertical well bores and completion techniques with explosives, basically directional charges, and staying away from everything else that has maybe an ill-conceived perception in some folks' mind, but it's still their perception, so it's their reality. And what I'm trying to do is make a company that is green as possible, and our primary goal is to produce helium and other gases of the noble, or they tend to be rare as the overall theme of things in the Earth's atmosphere. And they all have value. And that's what our goal is to do.
This is a very prolific area with about 9.23 billion cubic feet historically produced in the Pinta Dome and Navajo Springs area, not too far away from Holbrook. And there's so much more to come potentially. And you're a company that's vertically integrated, which means that from start to finish, pretty much it's spoken for.
Well, that's it. And what we're trying to do is not just drill a well and then sell it to someone else to process it and upgrade it to the highest grade. Our goal originally by design is to start out, number one, with higher grade levels of helium. Number two, then process it on location. And then in our particular case, we're not even going to have to truck it because the end users want this. Helium-4, helium-3 are so desirous. People are paying for the trucks and the trailers to haul the final product to them. So it's a unique situation. It doesn't mean that there's not a specific customer we might wish to deal with that we wouldn't haul specifically for them. But basically, it eliminates transportation. We're right there. And then to add into that, because most of the helium, as I previously touched on, is coming off a natural gas stream. So how they process it is they're using the natural gas to strip the helium off through the heating, cooling, and the powering and compressors. They're using that. We are in an area, there is no natural gas. And to get natural gas, we would have to lay miles and miles of pipeline, tear up miles and miles of ground just to get natural gas to run it. There's no power. The one thing we have is solar. So by design, this was to use solar power to do everything. So we will be the first company in the world to process helium that is totally off the grid and we're not adding to CO2, we're not adding anything into the environment detrimental other than just a vehicle going up and down the road. We are purposely, by design, trying to make this as green as possible.
And I applaud that, by the way, because that is the future, and the future is now. And without your attention to ESG, environmental social governance, really, you wouldn't be doing as well as you are doing, and you wouldn't have the cooperation politically in the state of Arizona that you do, right?
There is more support outside the state of Arizona than within the state of Arizona.
Why is that?
I think it's just the world, again, getting back to people's perceptions and their realities. There's a lot of people in the world, they're not against having oil and gas in a responsible manner. But yet, if they see there's a way to do something differently, why not? And in with this, the profit margin is so much greater than dealing on tenths of pennies, and the profit margins here are great. So why not? The technology is there. So my attitude is, why not do this? And it has been for many years.
I want to talk about that technology. Before we became acquainted and I became a shareholder of the company, and in full disclosure, you're also a sponsor of the Ellis Martin report, I didn't really know about all the uses of helium, although it basically surrounds me. For instance, if I were to get an MRI, it's in the machines, barcode readers, computer chips, high-capacity hard drives, and also space vehicles. So the multiple uses for helium are pretty widespread, and really the supply chain is tight. So you're in the right space at the right time.
And it's not by accident, because you and I have spoken before, Ellis. I started looking at doing this back in 1999. So I've spent more than 20 years doing geology and having a chance to understand where this could go, because there was discussion back in even 2003 how the U.S. government was going to get out of the business of dealing with helium. And it took them another 10 years to physically start the process. But when you have that much lead time, you know if it's been an artificial market, it is going to come back up. And I really thought there's more people involved in really digging for this than there were. And so I had an opportunity to look at this on a very personal ground level, probably the selection for the first 38 wells, 25 to 38 wells. I have physically walked on that ground somewhere since 1999. And that's unique for most people doing geology anymore. It's fly-by-wire or over or satellite or so remoteness. And I've actually been blessed with the ability to have walked out there. And that's also taught me, I took a couple other classes in archaeology because I was not familiar with it. And I wanted to understand what the cultural issues are, because Arizona is very rich in the cultural issues. And I don't want to destroy the heritage. When you look at it, I know what a pottery sherd is. I have an idea. I walked out, and there's probably 25 or 30 sites that I wrote off just because it's not an incidental occurrence of indigenous, of history there, a historical fact. I don't even want to try to go in the middle of an area that you can drive up in a vehicle and look out left or right, and you can see pottery sherds, arrowheads, and everything else. So people, and it's like, why destroy that? The whole area is open. Why even go there? Just be respectful to that and go to the areas where you don't have to deal with that. Yes, it does cut away from a lot of probably excellent choices, but there's plenty of helium there. Why pick on those spots?
This is ground you've known for a long time, as you said, so there was never a blind stumble into what you were doing. You have a background in exploration, in mining, in a multitude of commodities, and you saw the demand for helium, you knew where it was, you took action, and here we are at the fourth Wildcat well, which has produced some really great results, actually. Let's talk about that.
When you're looking at trying to expand this out and where to go. This is the fourth well. It's a totally separate area, 30 miles away from the last well. These are nothing but pure Wildcat. But in the process of doing this, we have now de-risked the entire overall package, because from here on out, I'm drilling, for the next probably 10 wells, they will all be offset to where we have already drilled. So we have de-risked the play. We've had an opportunity to build a team It turned into not just a lot of personal growth moments, but team build. We've announced that we're adding an additional team member, Jessica Davis. She will also be on the board. Very intelligent lady. She will be our vice president of land. She is a geologist. Her undergraduate degree was geology, followed by business management, specifically for oil and gas operations. So she brings an additional highlight to the board, and it increases the board where we are going with a number of people on the build out, because we have to expand. You look at the ladies that we put on the board already, they all are trying to be leaders within their industries, whether it be Dr. Ward in dealing with specific medical things. Shania sits on the board. She is the national treasurer for the American Association of Drilling Engineers. Jessica is the president of the American Independent Petroleum Geologists. So you have these women, they aren't just locked into just working for a company, but they have expansions within their specific doctrines. I think it's great that we can have a great input of ideas from a different set, all strong women, all with great ideas, and that helps build a better board and a better company.
Well, certainly you have an impressive company, and actually the stock has done very well. I'm pleased again as a shareholder, and that's because it's based on results on the ground and demand for what you're producing. It's really simple. You also have a radius of offtake partners, and it's a radius of, I think, about 200 miles or so all the way around, which means the cost of transportation is greatly reduced. You can transport it in a way where I don't believe you have to convert the gas. It can stay in gaseous form without too much loss over travel, and that's extremely important. So really, everything seems to add up, not without a lot of hard work and not without some trials and tribulations, but it makes for a really strong company at the start.
It does. When you're looking at some of these other aspects, like we don't have to turn everything into a liquid. We announced last week that we had been given a U.S. government federal payee number for same day pay. So when we deliver, they come in to pick up a trailer load of helium, we get paid same day. Obviously, those type of talk with the federal government do not happen overnight. They take many, many months, and it's part of the overall, where are we going to be selling our product? I'm not one to put all my eggs in one basket. I don't think it's good for the shareholders. So we will be diversified on that. Some parts of it we will be paid more for. We may not have to run it to as high a purity to match our customers' needs, and we're happy with that. I think it's a good mix to protect the shareholders.
Speaking of the shareholders, give us an overview of the structure of the company.
Currently, when we're switching out here as of the last board meeting, I am now executive chairman and CEO. Mr. Don Mosher has become the president of the company, and that's important as we go forward, looking to go on to NASDAQ in the short term. And I added Eric for outside. We will be adding additional drilling engineers, and there are very specific things to grow a company out to NASDAQ in the short term and not fail at this, and to go into production. You have a whole myriad of things that you have to do. No one is confined to only their hat that they're wearing at that moment, but it is what it is. You just go forward and get it online as soon as you can and get it to the customer, because they're clamoring for this. Like you had brought up before, Ellis, within 200 some odd miles, there's TSMC, they're putting a $12.2 billion chip plant on the north side of Phoenix. And there's 3 other plants that are being built here. They all need it. They all want, and you don't even have to go to a huge company like that. I know a lot of people get wrapped up in that, but there's so many other smaller companies. We could be the largest producer of helium in Arizona, and the demand would outstrip us. It's not a finite market. And that's what's really neat for me, from my aspect, and for my shareholders. What happens, like with the price of oil goes up and down, we can maximize this for the shareholders. And that's one thing, by de-risking this, it makes it more realistic, or it should, hopefully, to the shareholders that, wow, this is a real company. This is not just a promoter's dream. These people are really trying to build something here, and they're trying to bring in the brightest minds, irrespective of gender. I want the brightest people to work with.
Tell us about the share structure of the company, because I'm sure new investors potentially would like to know.
A lot of other companies, typically to be at this point, they would have in excess of 100 million shares issued and out already. We're sitting fully issued out, fully fully diluted, are about 78.36 million shares. We're at a very enviable position because a lot of other companies, they are not to our point with funding. We completed our funding last year. We did our acceleration of the warrants. We have no debt, no reason to have debt. We have well in excess of $27 million in the bank. We have all the capital we need to proceed. I don't need to do another dilution right now. And that should give the shareholders, I would think, if they do a dilution, it's got to be for something really huge. Don and I, in the last probably 60 days, we have turned down prepaid contracts in excess of $300 million. We have turned down share dilution in excess of, I think, $710 million. So we have turned down almost $1 billion. And I'm someone who worked hard my entire life to come up with funding to drill wells, this, that, and the other. And you struggle. There's a lot of people in the specific marketing, they understand what helium is. They may be hesitant to go in with a small company because it's like, this is not easy to do. Fully vertically integrated company. If you're in the oil business, that's saying you're not only going to produce it, you're going to build the refinery and you're going to build the service station to get the gas to the people. Well, we don't have to do all that. We're just going to process it. We don't have to build some ugly refinery. We don't have to pollute. We're going to use solar to run this whole thing. No one else is doing that. And that's one of those things that I really am proud of, not only for adding over 40% females on a board, but basically, if people want to look for a company that's trying to put their money where their mouth is and trying to do the best they can to make a company that is green as they can, in this industry, I don't know. Tell me who else is.
You know, I can't right now, and I'm not going to be able to. And Rob, it's been great catching up with you. Thanks again for joining me today on the program. Best of luck to you. Congratulations on all of your hard-earned success. And we look for more news when you have it, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. As always, it's fun.
I've been speaking with Robert Rohlfing, the CEO of Desert Mountain Energy, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange as DME, and in the United States on the OTC as DMEHF. Learn more about the company by visiting their website, desertmountainenergy.com. I'm Ellis Martin.
You may assume that Ellis Martin is a shareholder on any of the companies that sponsor the Ellis Martin Report, which means he has a vested interest potentially in them. Would you like to be one of the first to see who we are following? Subscribe to our audio newsletter. It's free. EllisMartinReport.com.